Hi guys, and welcome to day 14 of the Elevate Profit 30-day challenge. We're really getting into the meat of it now, and we're going to help you start using this new spreadsheet that we've built out over the last couple of days and really get it actually applying to you and your business on a day-to-day basis. It's actually something that you can immediately start to use and immediately start to benefit from. So let's get it fleshed out. Let's go over how to use it and how it can help, and then we'll dive into some dummy data, and we'll do it all here. We'll run through a couple of days worth of inputs, and then you can see exactly what it should look like once it's all finished. Okay, so the first thing, obviously, it's an industry secret. We actually do a practice run of these before we film them, believe it or not. So in that practice run, we realized that something actually may be better off if we change it slightly. So these banking totals here that we set up yesterday, these reflect this column here. And what we actually figured out or realized would be a better option is if we actually keep a running total of what's in each pot. Okay, so rather than tracking it daily and telling you how to distribute your money, what it's going to do is it's going to track the totals of the relevant budget pots in each of these sheets on a running basis. Okay, so we're going to change a few formulas around. So you can see here, this box here just points at these three. So actually, it just divides or adds up the daily totals for a few categories. But actually, what we want it to do is total the running total of what's in these three pots altogether. Okay, so if you can see here in the materials budget, as we add numbers to this, let's just put some fake numbers in here. It keeps like a running total. And then as we take some spends out, as we spend some money as well, whatever, it balances out. It keeps a running total of what's in this pot. Okay, so that's going to be, if we have a summary of the three categories that go into this pot, if we keep track of the running total of all three of them, it's going to be much more helpful than just the daily basis one. So what we need to do is change these formulas around and point the sum formula at three different boxes. Okay, so rather than on this sheet, what we're going to do is delete the contents of the brackets, go over to the materials budget, click this box, and then hit the plus sign. I'm going to do the same again for the wages box, the total budget in the wages box, and then we're going to do the same again for the expenses. There we go. Close the brackets. We do a very similar thing for each of these cells. This one currently points at this spreadsheet, so we're going to go over to the VAT budget and just point it at that one instead. The owner's account, so that points at these two here, and we're going to make it point at the correct ones in the other area. The total budget for the owner's pay and tax. Don't forget the tax is actually also included in the owner's pay pot as well. So pointing at those two. From the looks of it, we haven't got any profit at all. So our profit's still on 0%. Don't worry. Even though the profit's still at zero, it won't remain that way. We'll be increasing it over the next couple of days as like a worked example of how you can adjust these margins to make them work better for you. But for now, it obviously reflects zero. But rather than pointing it at the daily total, what we want to do is we want to point it at the running total of the profit budget. Okay, so there we go. And then what we need to do, because these don't reflect monetary values at the moment, just highlight them, format them, and format them as currency. And then they look a bit more like the numbers that we want to see. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to quickly do a few examples of, or a couple of days worth of inputting our banking data into this spreadsheet and just see how we deal with this, see how the sheet deals with this, and see kind of end up what it shows to you and what you can actually learn from that information. Okay, so what I've done is I've got another spreadsheet with kind of generic data that I've produced. But actually, for ease of flicking between the two, I've actually pasted them down here so you can already see the section of transactions that we're going to do today. So we've actually got 1, 2, 3 days worth. And what you need to do to start with is take all the income, which is this column here. And we're going to input this into this column here. Okay, so we've got 1,500, 200, 2,200, and 800. Put that in there. And then what we're going to do is use these numbers here. So what these numbers here, this income, they divide it by the margin and they distribute it among the pots. So the total here, and my math isn't that good. I think it's 4,500. And what that does is it divides 4,500 by the relevant margin percentages that you've got. And then what we need to do is we need to transfer these total amounts into our budget pots separately. Okay, so what that then does is it allows us to build up 7 different budgets for different purposes. So at any point, we actually know what's available for us to spend on various things. So if, for example, we've got £1,470 in the materials pot, we know that's exactly how much we can spend on materials. Okay, so copy that number there and go to the material spreadsheet. And what you want to do is you want to paste the values only of that number. And again, it might be helpful if we format everything on this sheet as a currency, just because for my own peace of mind, it'll actually look like money, which is good. Perfect. And then we're going to do the same again for every single one of those categories. Right, so the next one is the VAT. So do the same thing again, copy that, put that in there. In fact, just remember to right click and click paste values only, not the other. Not if you just paste it normally, what it will do is it will paste the formulas over and it'll get all confused, which is not what you want at all. So make sure you remember to paste values. Profit is 0, so don't worry about that. Just copy it and put it in there so we can track. We just keep track of the zeros. Paste value only. And then we're going to do the same for every single one. Okay, so owners pay, get that in there. Again, paste value. And then I'm just going to, for my peace of mind, if you like dealing with decimals and normal numbers, you can do, but I much prefer it to display the currency option. So if you want it to look like actual money, make sure you do that as well. So just format all the cells and make sure they display as currency. And then we're going to go to the income sheet and finish off. There's 3 more that we need to do. Make sure that we do it every time. So we're going to paste that across as the value. And then we're going to change everything to display currency just for visual reasons, because we don't really want to get confused. Right, so we want the last 2, I believe, which are wages and expenses. And then paste, right click and paste values. And then again, if we want to format it all to display it as a currency, it just irritates me a little bit when it doesn't. Let's just get that in there. And then the last one is the expenses, and pop that across into that expense budget. Remember to paste as value, which I haven't been doing very well, but remember paste as value. Not the end of the world if you don't. But format that, display it as currency. And then we have our budget pots being created. So what you can see here is any income we put in here is reflected in there as a running total, in our total budget for that particular category. So what we can see here is we've actually got 1,500 quid roughly in our expenses budget. So if you were thinking of buying, it doesn't really matter what it is, some stuff for the office or like a computer or laptop, whatever it is, anything that would be categorized as an expense, or if you're looking to spend something on marketing, for example, you can see that you've actually got 1,500 quid available for you to do that. And what that means is rather than having one whole amount of cash sat in your bank account and just thinking that you've got it available to spend, what this does is it actually forces you to think about what cash should be used for what purpose in order to stay in touch with your margins. Because what you don't want to do is disrupt your margins and get into bad habits that destroy your margins and make it so there's less and less profit available for you at the end of the day. So when it comes to payday, if you've overstretched your margins and you've not stuck to your budgets, the only person that loses out is you as the business owner. There's just less money in the pot for you to take for yourself, and at the end of the day, realistically, that's why we do what we do. We want to make sure there's enough for us to take for ourselves when it comes to payday. So it just helps you split down that bank account into more manageable amounts that are a little bit clearer as to what the purpose of that cash is for. But before we get an accurate amount in each budget, what we also need to do is take out the outgoings. So again, I've got the same amount of days worth of data here, and we're going to take out these 4 amounts out of each pot they should be taken out of. Okay, so wages is obviously the wages pot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take £1,000 out of the wage pot. As you can see, I didn't want this to happen, but it's generic data that I've just pulled out of thin air. And that's actually going to minus figures, which should be a big red flag for us that we're overspent on our wages. And then we're looking at marketing, stationery, and ads, which is 450, 25, and 80. And all 3 of those are come out of the expenses pot. So what we need to do is 450, 25, and 80. Will all come out of the expenses pot, and as you can see there, it's reduced it down to £980.66. So by taking out the right transactions out of the right pots, rather than working with one big chunk of money in one singular bank account, you actually have a bit more. Your data is more digestible, and it's more actionable, and it's a bit clearer what money you've got available for what purpose, and without having to effectively guess based on the cash balance of your bank account. Okay, it just splits it down one level further and makes decisions a little bit easier. Those 4 bank accounts I asked you to set up the other day, the ones that we redirected the formulas for just now, you can actually see these are the amounts that should be reflected in those bank accounts. So it gives you an opportunity, once you've done this with your coffee in the morning, once you've spent 10 minutes doing this, it's then time to redistribute the money that's in your main account accordingly, based on these figures here. Okay, so what that does is not only do you have these budgets, you are physically moving money somewhere and setting it aside for a different purpose. Okay, so for example, your VAT, if that's mixed in your main account and the amount that you owe for VAT is mixed in there, you can get yourselves in all sorts of trouble. I mean, the majority of you are going to be okay with that, and you're going to be on top of that anyway. But just by physically moving it away, you then categorize that and you make sure it's safe. And the same with your owner's account here. So by moving your money away ahead of time, you actually make sure that goes untouched, and that's going to be available for you when the time comes. Okay, so I highly, highly recommend setting up these bank accounts for free and using them in this way, because it's the action of moving it to one side just means that you're more likely to leave it there. So when you come to wanting to take a payday, you know what's in there for you and you know what's available for you. So it's a really, really highly recommended way of just keeping that money safe and making you stick within your budgets. So that's all we're going to do today. I appreciate that there's a lot more. There's a few more transactions that we could have done rather than the 5 or 6 or however many there were. But I really want to spend a bit of time explaining what each element of the sheet was for and how it's going to help you actually get on top of your cash flow. So I hope today explained that a little bit more clearly as to kind of what we were creating here. If it didn't, feel free to ask any questions about any specifics. If you've got any transactions in your bank account that you're not quite sure how to categorize, again, let me know and I can let you know kind of where they sit. The majority of kind of unclear expenses will likely just sit in the expenses category. But if you're not sure, just let me know either in the YouTube video comments or the Facebook comments, whatever it is that you're watching this on. Just let me know. But if not, we're going to come back again tomorrow and we're going to do a few more transactions and put them into this income sheet so we can get into the rhythm of using this and see how it can kind of fit in our daily workflows. Okay. I'd always recommend starting your day with this. So sit down with your coffee in the morning and looking at yesterday's banking transactions and inputting them all in before you start your day. And then you then armed. You go into the day armed with a bit more data about what money is available. So when it comes to a purchasing decision, in the middle of the day, you know what's available for you and what you should avoid spending. Okay, so we're going to spend the next few days going over this, getting some practice with it, make sure we know what we're going to do going forward, and it should get easier and easier to use this and make this part of your workflow. So for today, just go into your bank account. You want to go. I've just done today between the 1st and the 4th of January. And I imagine for most of you, it'll be like this dummy data. There won't be too many transactions to deal with. But just do however many days you want to do and input them into this spreadsheet, and then come back tomorrow and we're going to practice a little bit more at inputting these into the daily income sheet and dividing the money and moving it around so we're actually a bit clearer on what we've got available for what purpose. Okay, as always, guys, if you've got any questions, just give me a shout. If not, we'll be back again tomorrow and we'll dig into this a little bit deeper. All right, nice one, guys.